much, members of the media, for joining us this afternoon at our AFC press conference. We are happy to have you all participate. And as you know, the usual routine after our presentation by our members of the Alliance for Change on a range of topical issues, I would invite you to ask your questions. So without further ado, I would like to ask Dr. Vince Adams, who is an executive member of the Alliance for Change, to make his presentation.
Thanks, Kathy, and welcome to members of the press once again. Always enjoyable to chat with you folks. When was it? Monday? Was it Monday? I listened to and I listened and looked at the interview on the Glenn Lally show, the interview of Minister or Vice President Jagdeo, and to be honest, I was really astounded by the number of falsehoods. And I'm gonna, you can go back and check. And these are things that have been in the media and been ongoing in the media. So I don't know how the Vice President could have missed it by such a distance. To start with, the first one that really astounded me was the Vice President five times, folks, mentioned that EEPGL, Esso Exploration Guyana Limited, which is the limited liability company owned by Exxon. It's not owned by the three companies, it's owned by Exxon. The Vice President mentioned five times that this company was registered in Guyana. Folks, it's been all over even if the Vice President, whether he's misled or what, I do not know. But it's easy to even go check the Exxon website or go Google it. The Vice President, who's supposed to be in charge of managing EPGL, doesn't even know that EPGL is registered in the Bahamas and not Guyana. And he so confidently, like he always does, he so confidently expressed five times that it's registered in Guyana. Even up to on August the 31st, I wrote a letter to the editor entitled, Mr. Rutledge must sign the parent company guarantee as required by the EPA permits. And within that letter, let me read where I addressed that matter. It says, to add insult to injury, EEPGL is registered in the Bahamas, where, according to a recent Kaiser News report, it paid a whopping $2.2 billion US dollars to its home office in the Bahamas for 2020 and 2021, a sum that is more than 3 times all of the approximate 600 million oil money doled out to Guyana for those 2 years. So we got 600 million, but they were able to give to the Bahamas, to dole out in the Bahamas $2.2 billion. Mr. Rutledge, please explain to the Guyanese people why ExxonMobil did not find us good enough to register EPEPGL in Guyana so that we could have reaped the benefit of those billions of dollars that you're giving back to the Bahamas for doing nothing. Where is the gratefulness to your nation that has financially resuscitated your company? Sir, please spare us any more of your patronizing rhetoric about your care for Guyana and its people. So here it is, where Mr. Jagdeo had all of the information, but yet he doesn't even know that a company that he's managing that has so much impact on the nation of Guyana in terms of its financial resources and economics, he doesn't even know that it's registered in the Bahamas. Secondly, Mr. Jagdeo finally, and I almost fell out of my chair, when he admitted when he was asked about how about full liability coverage, he admitted, oh, it's in all four of the permits. He proudly said that as if, well, he or the PPPC was the one that put it in there. Well, folks, please let me inform Mr. Jagdeo again and you need to inform him that it was the coalition that put the language in there that he so proudly read. Matter of fact, he jumped on his cell phone and he read out the same clauses that I've been writing about and talking about in the press before you folks every single time. The same clauses that I've been reading and the same thing I've been saying, that the full coverage liability is a requirement. It's a legal requirement enshrined in all of the permits. But that's not the issue. The issue is that the current government is allowing Exxon to not comply with the legal requirements of that of those documents that Mr. Jagdeo so proudly read. That was in there since the coalition time. So the question, please go back and ask him. I plead with you folks to ask him, why is he allowing Exxon to operate without meeting those requirements? And the only requirements that we're requesting is the parent company guarantee, which is a simple letter to say anything over and above that insurance, the parent company, which is Exxon and the other two, will be covering that cost. Why are they so afraid? Now, he wants to boil it down. They're talking about boiling it down to $2 billion. How could he, with a straight face, say that they're strengthening environmental oversight, but you're reducing unlimited liability coverage or full coverage liability from the parent company? You're reducing it down to $2 billion. And let me remind you folks, a major spill such as the BP spill in the Gulf cost $70 billion. 70 billion. So what is $2 billion is 1/3 of fifth. What is that? 3%. $2 billion is 3% of the if we get such a major spill. Who's going to cover that? Is it the government of Guyana? What is our budget? Between $2 and $3 billion, which is several times, almost 30 times our budget. Who's going to cover? That's the question. Please ask him again. I've been asking over and over. So I'm glad that at least we've finally gotten over the first hurdle of him admitting there is a legal requirement in the permit. So now you have to perform your responsibility of ensuring that the laws of the land are carried out by whoever. You can't be wanting to go stop people for speeding on the road, putting emphasis on that. But then you have the big boys who believe that they are, or you're allowing them to be above the laws of the land. Yeah, he also failed to he talks about, oh, this is the other thing, he brags. He said, well, they've improved the environmental oversight. And then I thought that I had rebutted this several times before and he had stopped, but then he came back to it again. Said, well, now that for the first time they're treating water on board the PFPS. So that's a blatant lie. As a matter of fact, I would be offended and feel very nervous if I was Exxon to say that they were not treating the water before this government came into office. That's a requirement. It's an international requirement that you have to remove oil. It's not full treatment. You have to, when oil comes up, it brings up water with it. It's a requirement, international requirement, that you treat the water to remove the oil, not the other stuff, not the toxic material. To remove the water, and you dump if you cannot dump any water without a certain concentration, without you cannot exceed a certain concentration of oil. So please, Mr. Jagdeo, I have a lot of respect for the office of the Vice President. So I don't want to bring myself to believing that this here is just a deliberate untruth. I think, sir, you're being misled, and water treatment has been occurring from day one. The other thing that he talks about all the time is this cradle to grave. I don't know if it's because it rolls off of his tongue very nicely. Cradle to grave. Well, I don't think that the Vice President would even know what cradle to grave is if it hits him between the eyes. The person who introduced, and this is not about bragging, because that was my responsibility to introduce my knowledge to the nation. I was the one who introduced cradle to grave. I was the one who directed Exxon to have a cradle to grave policy. And all that meant is that every single ounce of waste that is generated on the ship, Exxon is responsible for it until its final disposition through treatment and disposal. What Exxon was doing, they generate the raw waste and then they dump it over to some treatment facility and they wash their hands. And I said, absolutely not. That has to stop. You are responsible for that waste from the time you generate it through treatment. And so you're not going to hand it over and no. So I was the one who introduced cradle to grave to the country. And now he's bragging. So he's bragging about water treatment. He's bragging to cradle to grave. And none of those are factual. I mean, it's just blatant untruth. I don't understand it. Then the other thing he says, the other thing that he keeps bragging about is flaring. Well, this is the first time that they're charging a fee for flaring. Well, Mr. Vice President, just in case you don't know, maybe you have to go and read the permit with the clause that you added. The clause that you added, you meaning your government added after I left, which gave Exxon the ability to flare as much as they want, as long as they can flare, as long as they can pay for it. Now that turns any environmental principles on top of its head, because you may as well don't have an EPA. If you can pay to pollute, as long as I can pay to pollute, I don't have to worry. Then maybe you only have to have a Ministry of Finance where everybody goes in and say, I'm going to pollute X number of tons per week, and here's the fee that I'm going to pay for it. They added a clause to give Exxon the ability to flare unlimited quantities of gas. Whereas in the past administration, we'd even shut down Exxon. When the flaring started and we give them a certain time to fix it, they didn't fix it, we shut them down to a safe operating limit from 100,000 barrels per day at the time to about 25,000 barrels per day. And that is all they've got to do. I've been writing about that, to cut back by about 10% or so of what they're producing. There'll be no flaring. But they don't want to do that because the amount by which they've got to cut back on, they will be making 30 times the fee that they'll be paying for flaring. So this flaring thing it's a gimmick. So he needs to stop talking about it because it's embarrassing and it doesn't make any sense to be bragging about collecting a fee when that's not part of an environmental principle. The other thing that they did, how could you say that you've improved environmental oversight and rigor when you abandon the 36-member unit at the EPA that we had developed with the World Bank? The World Bank gave us $1 million US. They brought in an expert. We sat there, we put together a plan with a 36-member unit, highly skilled, not any and everybody, highly skilled petroleum engineers, geological engineers, safety folks, so that you can go one-on-one, you can go, we have as much power on our side as they have and here's the most important part, to have 24/7 coverage on the ship itself. Guess what we're doing we just had a spill. We don't know heads or tail what occurred in there. They say it's a one barrel, we got to accept it. We didn't know what caused it. We've got to accept. So Mr. Jagdeo, how could you claim to be improving rigor when you abandon that unit? And what was funny, when the press asked him about it, and the press asked the executive director said, well, I am not aware of any such plan, and because I wasn't there. And when they were confronted with the document covered, when it was published in the press, the minister said, well, no, we hadn't abandoned it. It's there and we were implementing it. When the executive director said he doesn't know about it, the minister says, yes, they're there. So they're all over the place, contradicting each other. And of course, how could you say that you're improving the environmental oversight when you're allowing Exxon to operate Lisa 1 and Lisa 2 illegally? Data, the other thing that Mr. the Vice President, if you remember up to recently, and they thought that they're off of the hook here now. They had a big pomp and ceremony and all kinds of disclosures that they now have a site that you can go on to get the data. Well, since that announcement, they have not posted any data. You know when it was the last day they posted any data on production if you go to the site? July 11. That is what, 2 months now. Then when the vice president was confronted by Mr. Lal about real-time monitoring, he said, oh, we can't do real-time monitoring because we are not co-managing. However, we do real-time monitor on production data. He's been saying that, well, if you do real-time monitor on production data, you ought to be giving us the real-time data on that website that you sent us. So all the hoopla about they're publishing this data that they promised, the data has not been updated since July 11. Not to mention some of the sloppiness. If you go look at some of the graphs, and they've got one thing on the title and something else on the chart, and it's very, very user unfriendly. Very. I mean, I've gotten calls from even the press, even some of my friends say, how many people could read graphs? How many people could read? Put the numbers there on a daily basis. Let everybody see it. However, they're not even, forget about even the sloppiness and all. They're not even disclosing the data that they claim to be posting. I have a lot of respect. Let me close by saying this. I have a lot of respect for the office of the vice president. So it's very difficult for me to bring myself to believing that the vice president would be so demeaning to that high office, to be so callously misleading his people. So, I'm going to give him the benefit of the doubt. It's just that he's being misled or being misinformed, or not having capable people to inform him and to advise him. And I think our people deserves much, much better. So what I would like to do, I'm going to put out a proposal here to the Honorable Vice President. I would like to invite the Vice President one-on-one to have a discussion before the public, anytime, any place. And this is not to show him up or anything else. I think it would be, even the Vice President, I think, would be enlightened with the facts, because right now I don't think that he's being given the facts. And I think it will provide the country and the people of Guyana a great service. Then they'll be really getting the facts rather than the alternative facts. I would even give him one better in telling him that he can bring along whoever he wants, Exxon for that matter. I would love for him to bring Exxon for that matter. Then I can go one-on-one with Exxon while he sit back and learn in the discussion. So I'm putting that challenge out there and that invitation out there for the Vice President at any time, any place, to have a discussion, not a back and forth to make him look bad. That would never be my intention, because as I said, I respect the high office, but I think it's a responsibility on people like myself to bring the facts not only to the Vice President, but to the people of the country. And if he wants to bring in Exxon with it, I would love to have them, as a matter of fact, and they're best technical people. It really doesn't matter. So I'm going to stop there until if there are questions, Kathy.
Thank you very much, Dr. Vince Adams. And can I ask Member of Parliament David Patterson to make his presentation?
Thank you very much, Kathy, and good afternoon, members of the media. I'll be making 3 short interventions. Firstly, questionable contract awards. The AFC calls on the Public Procurement Commission to conduct a full investigation into the operations of the National Procurement Tender Administrative Board. Special attention should be paid to the bid evaluation and contract award process. Commencing August 2020, several contracts has caught the public's attention, ranging from the award of a school in Region 10 to a company that has no track record in construction. In fact, the principals of that company are better known for the promotion of sporting and entertaining events. Additionally, the award for the construction of a fire station to a company whose main business activity is in the mining sector. When questioned about the company's previous experience, the response was the successful bidder constructed their own offices. In 2020, the completion of Hunter Street was awarded to a company whose principal previous experience was in the motor racing arena. Once again, when queried, the response was the successful bidder previously built roads in the back dam. The recent award for the rebuilding of the North Rumbelt Multilateral School is yet another example of the questionable evaluation award process arising from MPTAB. One can recall that the last time this contractor was awarded a contract with the Ministry of Education, headed by the current minister, they jointly produced the Cato Secondary School project, a project so riddled with defects that it was deemed unsafe for occupation and extensive remedial works had to be undertaken. A recent inspection revealed that several issues relating to the poor construction of the Cato School still exist. The minister's remarks that an independent engineer will be supervising this project should be of little comfort to the public. An independent engineer was also assigned to the Cato School. Despite being supervised, the final product was unacceptable. The AFC invites the general public to pay keen attention to the tender process for the gas to energy project. In January of 2022, MPTAB received 12 pre-qualification bids for the gas to energy project. Yet, at yesterday's tender opening, companies that did not participate in the January 2022 pre-qualification process has submitted bids. It would be of interest to see the final award. The AFC has been compiling a list of all these questionable contract awards and will be formally submitting a request to the Public Procurement Commission to conduct further investigations into these awards. Oil spills. This is a matter just mentioned by my colleague Vince. However, for the records, following the most recent announcement that there was a spillage of 1 barrel of crude oil from Exxon's operations last week, the AFC once again calls on the PPP government to put in place full coverage liability for petroleum production as is required by the permits and demanded by almost all private citizens. Exxon previously reported that no more than 1 tablespoon of crude oil has been spilled since the commencement of oil production in Guyana. This amount has now risen to 1 barrel. By volume, there's a 10,000% increase. This highlights that the possibility of a major oil spill is high and will continue to increase directly proportional to increased oil production. The AFC once again calls for the Environmental Protection Agency oversight mechanisms to be strengthened. It is unacceptable for this agency to be solely relying on the operator for information on spillage and other hazards during oil production operation. We once again call upon the government to restore the rigorous oversight that was planned under the coalition and which the PPP government has irresponsibly scrapped to the detriment of the nation. This included a highly specialized 36-member oil and gas unit that was developed by the World Bank and the EPA, for which the World Bank provided a $1 million grant. One component of that grant would have been 24/7 on-site EPA presence in order to obtain real and accurate information instead of having to rely upon and accept information solely provided by Exxon. As may be recalled, when the plan was brought to the attention of the government's attention, they denied it ever existed. But when confronted with the documentation, the EPA director claimed he didn't know about it since he wasn't there when it was prepared. Surprisingly, Minister Barrett contradicted the EPA director by saying that the plan is being executed. It is time for the government to stop playing Russian roulette on this most important matter. Finally, I'd like to address the matter of contract amendments. The AFC has noted an article today which confirms that the 2016 PSA was amended in 2019. This amendment sought to bring clarity to our previous position that royalty payments were not cost recoverable. The article by Christopher Ram also confirms the APNU-AFC's stated position that the 2016 contract was in fact based on the 2012 model PSA as prepared by the PPPC. It should be noted that between May 2015 and January 2016, the minister responsible for petroleum was former President Granger. Between January 2016 and July 2018, the responsible minister was Raphael Trotman. From August 2018, this portfolio reverted back to former President Granger. This amendment was penned under former President Granger's stewardship. While being previously unaware of this amendment, it is assumed that despite it being always known and accepted that any royalty payment was not cost recoverable, the parties may have wanted to make this more pellucid before oil production commenced. The actions of the APNU-AFC government clearly demonstrates that if the parties to the contract are willing, a review and renegotiation of the existing contract can be undertaken. This, of course, requires the necessary political will. The AFC once again reconfirms its willingness to support a review of the oil contract for the mutual benefit of both the operators and the people of Guyana. Thank you.
Thank you, David Patterson. And if I could ask Member of Parliament from Region 10, Devin Sears, to make his presentation.
Thank you very much, Kathy. Good afternoon, colleagues, members of the media, and of course, our viewing audience. Allow me to make it pellucid as well, that the Alliance for Change supports community development and also national development to the benefit of all Guyanese. Here in Region 10, Upper Demerara Berbice, there are several issues that needs to be addressed, and the AFC has taken note of it, and we're not asking, we're telling the government to make it right to the benefit of these folks up here in Region 10. When we look at the regional budgetary allocation, we are in the month of September, and right now the region has only allocated up to 50% of the capital works. And this simply means that heading into year end, there will be a rush to complete these projects by the contractors. And it's no strange thing across the country. We're having substandard works when it comes to road and infrastructure development. But we're saying here in Region 10, we deserve the best. And one of the things that we've noted as the Alliance for Change is that a lot of these contracts are being allocated to folks outside of the region. And a lot of the contractors that we have in here, they're being slighted. And we're telling the government that they have to address that. You have to create a level playing field so that all can benefit from infrastructural development and, of course, the money that is allocated towards it. We also welcome the construction of the 24 roads within the region. However, what we have noted as compared to other regions, it's not just the road is being done. They have drain and supporting infrastructural work that is being done as well. But here in Linden, a lot of the roads that are being constructed do not come with any drains. So we want to know where the water is going to go. And before you know it, we will have, of course, broken roads, and we're back to square one again. So we're telling the government to ensure that these anomalies are corrected when constructing these roads. And of course, our representatives are on the ground every day, and even members of the community are sharing their concerns when it comes to these developments that are happening. And again, we note that a lot of these contracts within the region is being awarded to friends and families and cousins and whatnot, and that ain't right. When it comes to education, we are concerned, like David would have mentioned, we have been following the progress of the Bamia Primary School to the tune of over $170 million. And that project right now is stalled up, and that's a capital works project. And what is feared is that because of the incompetence of whatever is happening that caused the project to slow up and stop, that money, unless the region writes to the Ministry of Finance and maybe asks for an extension, that money might have to be reallocated into another project. And we very well might find the school, Bamia Primary School, not being completed within the scheduled time. And that is of great concern to us here in Guyana Region 10. There's a lot of substandard work that is being done. And one of the things that we've noted, there was an allocation of $30 million to the Linen Foundation Secondary School, Linen Foundation Secondary School. And what had happened is that the contractor, according to the scope of work, should have washed the building first and then paint. But what he did, he just went along and painted the building. And the Regional Democratic Council have flagged that project. And of course, it's under investigation currently. Still along the line of education, the Alliance for Change notes a lot of fires because of electrical problems are happening in schools. Most recently, the Christian Borg-Wismer Secondary School and the Amelia's Ward Primary School. The Alliance for Change is asking for a full evaluation of all schools within the region and throughout the country's electrical system. Because those schools were constructed so many years ago, we believe that the electrical circuits needs to be upgraded. And we don't want any mishap, should the worst happen, and then that will lead to the suffering of our students. And of course, them not having a proper education, they'll be out to school or have to be relocated for a little while. So we're calling for a full evaluation of the electrical systems across all schools. The feeding program, while commendable, what again, we as a party, we're pushing to support our local businesses. And within the school program, the juices that are being distributed is actually provided by a Trinidadian company. We're seeing here in Guyana Region 10, and even within Guyana, we have juices which are produced right here. So award those contracts so that we can build local capacity. There are still a lot of repairs that needs to be done in Kukwani Primary School and also Aichuni School. And again, our representatives are on the ground, and they have been flagging and raising these concerns and sharing it with the Department of Education, but today to no avail. In terms of health, the Alliance for Change is pleased and happy about the resignation of Rudy Small from the Guyana Hospital Complex as the CEO. Of course, he was embroiled in a lot of scandal, and he disrespected our health workers, of which the Alliance for Change cherishes so much. However, while this might be a victory for the nurses and the health sector within Region 10, we want to make it clear that the next CEO that is appointed should be some form of consultation with the Regional Democratic Council and the local leaders here. And the Alliance for Change is also calling for the implementation of a board that truly represents the people here in Region 10. Additionally, in terms of administration of finance, the funding for the Regional Democratic Council, the new building, has not been awarded. In fact, it was not catered for in the 2022 budget. And this new building, which was proposed under the APNU AFC's administration, is needed now more than ever, particularly why? Again, most recently, there was a fire evaluation that was done at the current RDC building, and it did not pass the test. So that means anything, the worst could happen there. So we're calling on the government to make provisions to ensure that the new Regional Democratic Council number 10 building is constructed. In terms of financing within Linden and Region 10, the Linden Enterprise Network, which have supported a lot of the small businesses that we have here in Linden and Region 10, is underfunded, and in fact, they lack a board. Under the APNU AFC, we would have allocated over $150 million, of which a lot of the businesses give birth to a lot of the businesses that we have here in Region 10. So it's not surprising that they don't want to fund the Linden Enterprise Network, because I fear the government don't want to see development within this region. So we're calling on the government to ensure that proper funding is given to the Linden Enterprise Network, and also to install a board that is represented by the people. In terms of flooding, we are fully aware that global warming is real and climate change is real. And over the last 2 years, we've seen rising sea level. And as a result, we have seen flooding in Rockstone, Kukwani, and even here in Linden by the Karakara Creek. And one of the surprising things is that there's simple infrastructural work that can be done to alleviate the problem. One of it being is the dredging of the Karakara Creek, even dredging the Komaka Mines area there along the Demerara River, and even the dredging of Kukwani, that's the Borbis River. And these things here, those dredging will help alleviate the problem that we're having when it comes to flooding. But again, what we believe as the Alliance for Change is that there must be a level playing field. In Region 9, most recently, we've seen the president making an announcement that 600 homes, each one of them will receive $1 million. But we have a situation in Kukwani whereby those folks at the waterfront, to aid in their relocation, they will need such provisions as well. So we're asking the government to ensure that whatever is given to those in Region 9, the same can be afforded to those folks here in Kukwani and even in Rockstone. In terms of the temporary jobs, we still have a problem with that. That's the $40,000 job. The folks who are working those jobs are not, their NIS are not being paid. They cannot go into the bank and take a loan or anything like that. While we welcome the temporary jobs, we believe that greater investment needs to be made within Region 10 so that we can have permanent jobs. Our people don't deserve temporary jobs. They deserve the best. And with the best, we have to have investment. The same investments that are that Georgetown and along the coast are being afforded, Region 10 needs that no more than ever. In terms of youth, the completion of the synthetic track, that project has been delayed. And we're calling again on the government to ensure provisions are made to get that track completed, because we're heading into the sports season, the sports period, and our youths have to settle for mediocre track and field provisions here in Linden. And even when it comes to the stadium, we as the Alliance for Change believe that now is the right time for Linden and Region 10 to get a stadium of international standard. And we have been calling constantly for the appointment of a youth officer. We don't have any as yet. And just wrapping up a little bit, the Linden to Letham Road, we welcome that project. In fact, the leg from Linden to Mabura, this year was championed by our very own David Patterson, and even secured the support from the United Nations and other donor agencies. But as the project begins, there's a lot of bureaucracy that is happening, particularly with getting necessary permits, even for water. That is a slow process. It's very slow. So that is affecting the process of development here in Region 10. And we're asking the government to ensure that these provisions are made by permits so that the contractors can carry out their work. And finally, what is a road without a bridge? We, the Alliance for Change, have been championing the cause of ensuring that the Wismar to Mackenzie Bridge, we did a feasibility study. We even found ways of funding for it, but unfortunately, this year, we are not seeing, it's not seeing the light of day. So the Alliance for Change is calling on the government to ensure that the Wismar-Mackenzie Bridge is constructed at least in the coming year, and we are going to be pressing it. Ladies and gentlemen, let me say this here, right? Our country will do well. We will go places. We will make an impact within our region, in the Caribbean and throughout the world. However, if we forget about traditional industries and just go with what the oil and gas is offering, well, then we will find ourselves in a terrible situation. Linden has been built on bauxite. Bauxite has played its role in the country's development and contributing towards the GDP. But we see the bauxite industry being ignored, and this is not right. Rousseau of itself.
I'm sorry, I think we have lost Devin Sayers, Member of Parliament, but I say, Devin, thank you for your most comprehensive contribution today. And let me go to the final statement we have, and it is on International Day for Democracy. Yesterday, Thursday, September 15th, was observed as International Day for Democracy. In a statement to mark the occasion, the ABCE heads of mission here in Guyana made it clear that elections alone do not make a democracy. In their joint statement, the ABCE chief representatives made it clear that democracy equally involves ensuring equity and fairness and holding to account those who commit abuses and foster corrupt practices, among other principles. The AFC is not surprised by these reminders, as we knew it was only a matter of time before the arrogance of the PPP would come to the fore and they would reveal once again their true colors. The PPP of 2022 is no different to the PPP of 2014 or before. Corruption has returned as a norm in the award of government contracts. The police force is once more hamstrung by political interference. Parliamentary oversight and debate is curtailed. Victimization of persons who speak out has returned. Worse than all of this is the blatant, naked racism that is destroying Guyana under the PPP stewardess. In every sector, there are complaints and reports that one group has preferential treatment with tokenism to appease other groups. No country can lay claim to a democracy in the face of such atrocities. The PPP cannot help but be themselves, arrogant and abusive. The behavior of the president at MOCA and also the vice president's divisive comments on international institutions and their respective heads during his interview on Kaito News are clear indications that the old, arrogant, abusive PPP is back. Decent-minded Guyanese would recall the verbal cuss-out leashed on the former US Ambassador Brent Hart by a PPP Minister of Government in 2014. The AFC is sure that the nation and the ABCE heads of mission can expect more arrogance, abusive behavior, and cuss-down politics from the PPP in the future, unfortunately. That has brought us to the end of our formal presentation. Now, can I open the floor for questions from any member of the media? You know the protocol. Please identify yourself and your agency. And I will ask you to put your hand up. And I know Mr. Sherrod Duncan will assist in anyone that I miss. Any questions? We had a range of interesting discussion, lots of new information. Members of the media, any questions at all on any of the issues presented today or on any other topical event or issue?
Kathy, while we're waiting, if you would allow me,
Okay, briefly, yes.
Yeah. No, again, getting back to since the vice president has raised this whole issue about, the PPP strengthening environmental oversight. Again, the media has been calling for it. Now we are calling for the vice president to release the Allison Redford report that had abolished flaring and the dumping of water. The team of Allison Redford and her Canadian folks, the EPA, the GGMC, and the Department of Energy had several meetings. We met with Exxon and directed them that they will not be dumping any water into the ocean. They have to put in the equipment on the ship. Also, the same thing for flaring. There shall be no flaring. Those meetings, the Exxon was directed. But then, as soon it was right after I left in August, the PPP went ahead and signed off on the permit anyway, ignoring all that. So we challenged them again to release those reports. The media has been calling for it, but they're refusing to release it.
Thank you, Vince. And I think we have a question from Lekram. Lekram, please proceed.
Good afternoon. Can you hear me?
Yes, loud and clear.
Hi, Lekram from the Cyber News. Mr. Patterson, in relation to particularly the award of the contract to CARES Engineering and the Cato School, and now North Rhineveld, back when the APNUFC was in office and the defects were discovered and all of these things, can you say what steps were taken to penalize this company? Because in our investigations, both the tender board and the procurement commission said that nothing has been officially communicated to them, so they could not have used outside information in the evaluation of this bid for particularly the recent contract. So I'm trying to find out, since you as Minister of Public Infrastructure would have worked somewhat closely on this project, what steps were taken in that regard to penalize this company? And I may have some follow-up questions.
Thank you very much, Lekran. First and foremost, I was unaware that MPTAB in particular would have made such a statement. I mean, I didn't read it because it's completely untrue. Bit of history, the Cato Primary School was on the Ministry of Education 2018. They would have paid, I can't remember, about 80% or 90% of the funds. But there was complaints prior to May 2015 about the defective works. The Ministry of Education at the time asked the Ministry of Public Infrastructure to undertake a investigation of the school. And we sent up our engineers. I commissioned our engineers and we went up. Initially, that was the engineers within the ministry, including the engineers in the materials department. They did in the investigation of the structure, the building, the works, etc., and they produced a report, which was sent to the contractor, and the report is was quite clear that the concrete was substandard. The requirement, I think, was 4,000 psi. When they used the Smith hammer test, it was 1,700 or something, like half the required. The contractor at that time disputed the results. And I think if you go back into your newspapers, you will see it out that he made this, I think, with a public page, public ad, disputing the results and claiming that the ministry's report was biased and it was victimization. And at that stage, to avoid any prolonged dispute over a much needed school, we commissioned an independent survey, and it was headed up by Rodriguez Architect Limited in association with civil engineering consultants, which as well as other consultants, I think electrical and plumbing. And they produced, and we invited a contractor to be present, because of course one of the claims was when the Ministry of Public Infrastructure first went, that always his representative wasn't there. I can't recall specifically if his representative was there. I do think so, that he did send a representative from a company. I can check my records, I do have them. And the report was produced, I think Stabrook News quoted from it on several occasions. That report was sent to the contractor to say, look, this is an independent report, please see what it is. He once again queried the authenticity or the validity of that report. And at that stage, Cabinet advised that MPTAB should be written to, advising that the contractor has not fulfilled his contractual requirements, and that as a thing that we would ask, we would be, and this is prior to the Public Procurement Commission coming in, and we said that we would have an objection to any awards made to him until such time as the defects were satisfactorily done and he covers. So we did write, I did write to MPTAB, saying specifically that on behalf of the Cabinet. So for the MPTAB to say they were not aware, it's not true at all. And during the period subsequent to us writing to MPTAB, and then he continued bidding, and MPTAB informing him that this is an issue that you have, as it is in the bidding documents, litigation, previous work, and those things like that. He subsequently, about a year after, made the offer to complete the school at his cost. The Ministry of Education were overlooking the project. I think they employed an independent consultant, I think it's VICAB, who oversaw the completion of the work to the Ministry of Education. At that time, the ministers and the ministry satisfaction the school was open. I know for sure that at the end of that and after the defects liability period, approaches were made to me, my office, because since the initial letter was based on a report, the two reports done by the ministry and by Rodrigo, to write to MPTAB to say that the contractor was in good standing. Now, it was a position I declined because obviously it was not I simply was based on the reports which I had in my hand. I said, it's the Ministry of Education who were the ones responsible to writing to MPTAB to say that they are satisfied with the work done, not my ministry. So that is the position. So I'm so very, very surprised, and I challenge him, and I I like to do this quite often. I challenge MPTAB to contradict anything that I say, because obviously I would have the proof to prove them all right. So they were very aware that Kires was Cabinet at the time signaled dissatisfaction with the work he performed in Cato.
Are you aware whether or not the Ministry of Education at the time would have sent a letter to say that Kires is now in good standing with it?
No, I wouldn't, because it would not be something that I would have to be part of. My ministry would have to be part of. Previous ministry, former Ministry of Public Infrastructure. I'm unaware of what happened there. But I can say, even if that was done, I know that well, of course, that I can't recall him being awarded any contract after that under our ministry, under our government.
All right. Mrs. Hughes, I don't know if you can give us an update as it relates to the situation in Region 10 over the vice chair position. Where are we now with that?
The only update I can give you is that the meeting that was scheduled, at which the proposed election was to take place, was delayed, was put off, and I currently am not aware of when the proposed election is supposed to take place. I would ask Devin, who I know had some internet problems but is back. Devin, has there been any update that I might have missed over the last couple of days with regard to that election?
No, not as yet. However, what is hoped that the 4 councillors that have to be replaced, GCOM would have been written to, along with the names with the replacements. That's for Douglas Gittins and a few others. After that process is completed, well, then it's expected that they will have the election for the vice chairman's position.
Thank you. Thanks for that addition. Thank you, Devin. Okay. Any other questions from any members of the media? I am not actually seeing any other hands up. If that is the case, then I will say thank you very much to all our representatives from the AFC who were part of this press conference today. Most importantly, thank you very much to the members of media for joining us. We will send out some of the statements that were prepared. There are others that, of course, you would have heard and have access to the recording a little later on in the day. And thank you very much to Sherrod Duncan, who's handling our technical issues.